anyway saying when you ahodo bebree wo honom na saa when you ahodo na e wo honom na emmoa emma ye nyamesom ne nkoso enti se ade ne wo ho a kwan ben so ne ye befa so ne yesua yes knowledge is power see yesua ene ye beboa ye ama ye hu kwan ye befa so a resolve saa when you ne saa problems na e wo honom no enti no me pese wo fa Bible no na ubie ko Yakubu nwoma no anase James chapter 1 the verse 16 ekosi 19 no. James chapter 1 the verse 16 to 19 na asema wo ho na say also don't be deceived my dear brothers, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like lightning. He chose to give birth through the words of truth, that we may be a kind of his first fruit and be created. And verse 19 or say, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Me pese me see last part in this video or say, for man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Pacho me say it as in Monpai. Osho him and ne oma ye be share ye ba be suan ho ade. Emra ye wura home dan mu. Wakwa me nsa ne me mfata. I'm just a vessel to be used to speak to your children. Me so say permission chain na kasa fa me mu. Man sama ye be che ne ye mu nyina ne mi ameka se nyina no. Ye mfa mu aba na mo ayo ya brabom wadom pimenti. Amen. Okay. I'm thinking says what kinds are James chapter 1 and the verse 16 corner, especially the verse 18 in 19 or see he chose to give us birth through the word of truth and one might be a kind of first fruit of all he created. Now or see don't be deceived, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Sa passage and then yeah, men can say a memory text me per se and kebetimi a remember a platform so and by the time or tsena yenwie no na sa particular text at least verse 19 and 20 no near memorizing. Verse 19 and 20 no near memorizing. It me baba be share me screen na yase dwumadie na se na ya discuss ene adesua Nyankopon epese ode emaye no. Enti say na bidi kan yes storm proof living, a practical guide to life and relationship. And James asase Yakubo asase etu yefo say ye memem yenhye ade bi nso say as I say ye slow to ye quick to listen say ye tie entemra yaba platform ni ye adwen say nyame afa kwan bi so eba maye am ye tie nene, so we should be quick to listen. Ne to so bi or say slow to speak and slow to become angry. The reason why ye this way because ye mu bi ye bu fonti, it is ripping our families apart. Na enam senti no yaye under resourced enti ye ba be sua kwan ya ye befa so a saa ade ye ka say slow to anger no ye betimi aye fi verse 20 ni ka tell say ye bufuo ene ye anger na ne we say na ese ye relationship ese ya brabo na enam say ese ye relationship ne ya brabo ni enti no one And the most important thing is am I live the righteous life that God desires? Abrabo pa nyankopon pese me no ye bono. Because of your bufu, your anger, anyway, say no, any and tema ye pese ye kasano. Say a bushia. Na nunti abrabo tene nyankopon pese ye bono, ye intimi. Inti ene, ye ba besua ade a storms na ye kan wasen no. See ye kase storms na, what are they? One, storms na ye kan wasem a eno ama problem ene ama conflict aba ye busua mu no. My trend says storms na ye situations that overwhelm the resources needed to manage or maneuver successfully. There are storms in our relationships. Storms ewe ye fie ne say one. Ye wo situations a who do be a ebro ye so. Na enam say ebro ye so nti no ebro ye so because resources ahon keka nioma ye say etime ankeka ho na ye hia na say ebetime aboama nioma na ebu ye so ye betime dia ye adwuma no ye ni. Enu nti na brofo kase be kase abey albatross ne da ye kon ho abey ayi konua kase e na da ye kon ho. Enti se ye betimi amanage resource storms ni ya ene ye se hu resource kro na ye hia no na ye nya resources na ye se nya na abundance. Ye ma typical example. Se memfa ne se owo $10,000 Canadian dollars ewo ho. Na o problem ana say sika wo hia sa wo de top ade na $20,000 Canadian dollars. Meaning say sika 7 year because we run a deficit of our extra $10,000 Canadian dollars. And because of that deficit one, it will be very difficult for you to manage the problem now. A $20,000 problem no. Ubet may use 10,000 a manage. In this year, bet me solve the $20,000 Canadian dollar problem now. A mean say you happy again. Your savings in your sika 7 I say it me ye. Into storms are situations that overwhelm the resources needed to manage or maneuver successfully. Now, so opesa will become a storm proofer, meaning say you have enough resources. Mechanic say becoming storm proven easy. Very easy. Now easy no, and not just the word easy. Easy means education, abilities, skills, strategies and support, and yearning, and that's effective motivation. And to say to me, I weather the storms and situations now overwhelm. Yeah, now we need some easy steps, and the easy steps in about any education. It be na yes CA. So storms in our lives in this year bit overcome. We need to be educated, and also near one, your abilities. Ya ho odi a ye wo no se ebetimi no ye nya education a ho odi a de be ye adwuma no one ese ye nya akwan ahodo a ye friend say skills no ese enu so ye nya na ye nya open the willingness, the yearning, the effective motivation say enioma yesu ya na ye de be ye adwuma si etimi kasa enioma ni wie eboma then the storms na say situations na overwhelm ye no. We'll have these easy steps to help deal with it. We'll have the resources. And the resources to have a storm-proof life, education, abilities, skills, strategies, and support, and then yearning and answer motivation. And then take it one by one. These easy steps are memory. You there busunyeti. You want ma. What are some of the easy steps? Education, one. What are some of the things I say you no be boy I yet me whether all the conflicts now ye dealing with no China me you be delay with the biblical aspect as to how Nyankopon episode you see and yet me dealing with some of these storms and I become one. 81. As I say, answer na ye bit me dealing with storms, we need to take a 4D look. So Papa, why just to drop we need to have what I call say a 4D look, a 4-dimensional look at the storms. And we need to understand why the storms develop in life and relationship. Storms and them cry never. Because one, Yadika say storms in their situations are that actually overwhelm the system. It is and only idea overwhelm the system. Then we are saying say we need some strategies. A convention storms. How does it come about? Papa, you're born as to one. The reason why storms situations with the normally we say one, differences. 2, deficiencies, the 4Ds, differences, deficits, distress, and deliberateness. Sa nneoma 9 way and the 4Ds storms and bankers and no situations na your resources in the first place. The differences, the deficits, the distress, and then the deliberateness. Nneoma 9 way and the storms in the first place. Now me per se ye fa ninkakrakra ni ehu. What are these? Now differences. So in terms of education and differences. See, taking differences which happens to be one of the causes of storms. One of the things I see when I say meaningful differences come into conflict with each other. Sometimes, differences need be a one, and yet just arbitrary. They are very meaningful. And yes, one I open those differences about. And your differences are you were born with it. Now, those differences now you can't want them. So we are saying that for storms need to come, storms that is causing our relationship to break down. Storms are my manom answer ne beba no. You say you have easy steps. Education. We are talking about resources. We are talking about skills. We are talking about yearning. We are talking about abilities. Those easy steps, and you see easy steps, one, you see, normally been the causes are storms, and one of them differences. So we are discussing the differences now. Now the difference when we talk about differences between two people, meaningful differences, one, a personality, disposition, and temperament. Now you can't nipa personality and I said buying na idea innate de wo ye mu bebre ni ye wo awusu ahodo bebre a develop into our personalities. Say you say wo ye, and we have nothing to do with it. And yes, ye kusua na yakokofa. Na ye ko enimu ye behu some of these personality dispositions and temperament and then nyoma be a unique. Enti ye mu bi sa innate and I say idea we na a boy may develop a personality e bi wa ye the way. Near toso the third P in a perspective. See a perspective most times you know, and sometimes some of these things and yet ya worry money a man kwana these storms as a phenomenon. Some of the differences are at these storms in a one nipano personality in disposition and in the temperament. And then I'm easier sorry mo Ghana for and to compare mudano. The personality and temperament and disposition differences, there will be 2 perspective. How I see and what I believe about how it should be. So, what am I trying to say? See a perspective now. You obi kwanya meme fasu hu ade bi. Any kwanya meme dream say ebeye. Say a perspective. It the case say perspective can be different. Wo kwanya uhu no ade no Bible yi ewo ho. Kwanya meme hu Bible no say eye black yi. Nti say wo hwe from her. Memfa ne say a practical life ya meme twire. Say me tina ha me hu no wo machi say ade na atea. Me so say wa wo hwe no from anim no hu ne say atene. Enti ne say wo fa me perspective na how I see it, kwanya me fa so hu ade no. Any kwanya me didi say ebema na aye. Those are what we call the perspective. Na perspective ni betima your values, or priorities, anyway expectations. These are the various things that a form will be perspective, will be values, the priorities, and then the expectations. Into expectations, any meme expectations might be different. Or priorities, any meme priorities might be different. We are looking at it from different values. Any meme values might be different. And because it said, my values here different, my priorities here different, and my expectations here different in internal, we are going to have different perspectives about issues. And no, and I bring it some about some of these meaningful differences we see. It's the third P. I know form a part of your differences and a preference. Say a preference, how I want or sometimes things should be. Kwanya me pese ade we me pese eyesi. Anase me pese ade we say na me dwen se esenke ye no. That is the preference. And preference no your desires and your wants. Me de me pe mo ni kontombre. Aha, wo preference ne say mo de any tomato stew ni edidi. Bia wo preference ne say fufuo de fufuo na ye. Obi so de ne say fufuo de anopapa na wadi na de akwa adwuma. Those are our desires and wants. So sometimes what I want or think things should be might different from yours. So these are the differences ever. And these are the very first three P's I bring about differences. One, your personality, your disposition, and your temperament. And no, the way. Two, your perspective. Kwanya me fasu hu ade bi. Any kwanya me dwen say it should be. And no, sa perspectives no. Neema nipa nya different perspective na one your values. Kwanya fa so tete your priorities. See here, there me person e ba ansa na what. Any me expectations. Neema me susu say me hwehwe say ebeba as a result of that, And then we are talking about preferences. So when we talk about the differences now, the 4 Ds now, a cause storms, One is differences. And differences, and you actually move 3. It is a whole draw diagram. You have the storms, you have the 4 Ds, and out of the 4 Ds in the back, we differences. And the differences, and you actually move 3. The personality, disposition, temperament, then perspective and preferences. Yeah, twaso, yemrenity. And you call the next P, I form part of the differences, And only yet the personalities, disposition. Now, check a very simple, common example. These are some of the personality differences I owe. You will be no more, you're from say introverts, and you're extroverts. For God knows how long. On kasa. You won't be so dear. Yeah, Jim Jenny. You could drew baby, I know Biati and Kase. Ya men's an abana. Or be a baby, I know Biatan. Those are some new maybe people, some people easily connect with other people. We did two nipper to be echo baby. One of them will easily make friends, they easily connect with people. There are some people it will take them time for them to be able to warm themselves to somebody. Those are personality and disposition differences. Two, some of the personality differences in be say obi a internal processor, obi a external processor. Oka asem kyerɛ na wɔde bɛhyɛ ne team na wɔde baako aka mmienu na aka mmiɛnsa na aka nnan aka sɛ oh nti wei sei a waken ɛna ɛbɛkyerɛ sɛ wei sei na ɔdwen sei na ɔdwen no ɛkyerɛ sɛ wei na ɛbɛyɛ ɛna ɛsɛ wei na ɛbɛyɛ deɛ ɛna wei nti adeɛ baako na ɔka no hwɛ wɔde nneɛma bi akeka ho ɛna ɔde draw ne conclusion. They are internal processes. Obi wɔ also a ɔyɛ external processor ɛna ɔka no hɔ na no amount response. Those are personality differences. The other kind of personality need disposition differences need be say obi oha ope order, obi per comfort, obi order nene say obi fie na I say a plan say plate ne wa ha ye di we si ha car ne ye park ne say we ne ye say auto bed na ye to ne say order. Ye free A, ne ko B, ne ko C, ne ko D. Obi so ha ne personality ne comfort, anything goes. And then my form more platform who be oba no ato ne socks egu. No ayi no we ato ha. Wotimi ye to to ne nneoma ye obi wa nene de no. Or so you comfortable. Say me my but my judge I say no or no person feel boy yi ne boso. So you comfortable. Personality difference in is there. Ebi so ye planners. And ebi so ye very spontaneous. Planners, you know, ye per se abusua no, ye per se ye call vacation. And I'm say call vacation, no. Or no, your penny say as a planner, no. 6 months before the vacation, no, ya tena ho a draw vacation ye kwe. Ye be kwa kodwa hotel B, ye free hanoma, ye be kwa hase, ye free hanoma, ne kwa say, me boss be a menene ye juma wo Maryland. 8 months towards their family vacation. Now she has all her itinerary drawn nicely. I booked the place and done everything 8 months before that time. It won't be so dear. The personality is spontaneous. Question. A year friend say me we say oh yes, meko. Oh wait, oh me tanya me bia. Ye we nipa de bi te ho. Sa. Wo friend na ne wo bi obeye. Enti the father to say wo ye friend wa na woko ene se obi so wo ho a opese man time ye born money. Enti me fan say sorry. Wo pese man program. Nipa sa no. Ese o man time no wa catch them ahead of time. Ebia me ya mensa. O frame na catch them Friday you raise of frame some na be bonfire. Maybe I'm famo metima ba be. But no there be. So wo betena se na aka say na nye empire keke na bebo. Ono no hu ne sa. Ne personality ne say so be bonfire wa so dem a wo be catch no, wo be plan o nim ne obeye for the empire no. Ebia ya mensa de o ye spontaneous. Into catch so empire kra if wa betena so dem o me nda no pa na friend say oh ye problem na bompa obebompa na o divine service obey sisi a or spontaneous. Into the father to say obi a plan and obi a spontaneous no. So one who some of these differences na they be a who near or ye plan and who no bofu and no trend on the be just what obekacho and I just want money and where you say mama for I walk platform is see you who say be a ukunu no e be ono ye planner. Maybe also you're spontaneous. You need to know these differences. Because these are some of the things that will help you to avoid conflict. That will help you to avoid some of the relationship pitfalls. You know? Some of these personality differences are kind. It be a safe and routine. Like they have to follow a routine. Methodological or sorry, or sorry, or lay in the bed, or lay in the bed. no bunko toje no abompaye opompaye no aye ne Sabbath school ni we say ansa no akobatro akotwitwi ne se otwitwi ne siria obeshawa o shawa wia no abedresse no akoje wakogina no akoye ne milo ne bread owia. There are people who have a routine. Obi so ho adventurous send me ka o my is spontaneous people no variety is the spice of life for them. Into on routine into a person ne yeah you say otsa no you say into woman ye routine na no aye board into papa wo fie as say wo ma a wo ho ne wo yere wo ho no you need to learn and until education no yeah cause storms no can be easy. Education is one of the things that we are doing, and we are building our abilities and getting the skills, you know, and later on we will develop the yearning and the motivation to do it. And you know, that is that. And so we say Obano or you're spontaneous or you're planner or you're a person feel comfortable or you're external processor or you're internal processor or you'll be on your routine. Maybe a crowd way or no of a routine of a safe spot. A crowd way there or you're adventurous or no of a variety. You need to know all these differences. Because if you don't, you always have the mistake of always going into conflict with them. Then we have some of them are very rigid, structured, or needs a routine for no, and also flexible and easygoing. So this personality differences is one of them. You can't count the first one, no? The personality differences. You can't count the we say your perspective. Medical perspective once say perspective is how I see and what I believe about the wood. Mika, the values, priorities, and expectations. And you can perspective, values, priorities, and expectations are different. Maybe dear are different. And one big picture, a picture away. And to see a perspective, you see, a perspective is one's point of view influenced by their personality, their values, and experiences. And the reason why we want certain perspective about a new maybe a course with you, and new maybe a course of warrior, and new maybe a course of sorrow, need probably what different perspective as how things are being run. Most times, you know, those things are influenced by your personality. With my personality traits in your it can be because you are a very routine person. And also, we are very spontaneous, easygoing, flexible. And your perspective on how things should run can be influenced by those personality in your manner. And now say, it can be influenced by your values. Quite fast so tete be a nipa wo tete no me near tete me no. Now you're very orderly. Mama ba na your friend house mistress. Oh sorry anopa. We lay bed. Now a bonfire no go tutu o se. We are no we dware ansa na mama na ma waduane di ofi ho. So I grew up like that. We drew out once we be pie no wata de say woto no double lines. A form o mo be form wa or the be nim nan mu mpaboa no de them nine afam form honum. I'm making sure say neti bi anka ne name. That was how my mom was. I grew up like that. It means say me baby some of these training and values na they are experience my influence my perspective. And today me ba ofie na me say no matter how we down we say I will have a different opinion about you because of that perspective. Because of one, my personality, my values, and my experience. So perspective is what we talk about, say, one person's point of view, which is influenced by some of these things I'm saying. Now, I did say, perspective can be very helpful or harmful. But one of the things I see when I say in life, and relationship, the first step to addressing different perspective, it's not say over challenging nipa or trying say over changing nipa. But as I say, you learn to recognize, you learn to acknowledge, you learn to understand, and ultimately validating them for who they are. Nienti and tokwane bebreba you a relationship mu, ya busua mu, ya sorry mu, anyway say it's about some of these things. Yemubi, we have very stringent perspective here. We always want to change people, or we want to challenge people's perspective. But we forgot to say, your experiences, your values, and your personalities, sometimes might be different. So we say sometimes perspectives can be very good, and sometimes it can be very bad. And that can happen because if you go about challenging people's perspective almost all the time, you always go into conflict. Into a bit my your back, a bit my your yere, a bit my your anybody in your home or in your relationship. So almost share any different opinions other than yours. Now we feel say or more challenge you, and also challenge you more, and also we doing say they be or more change or more dear. No more better perspective. And no thing they be all sorry, you see a lot of people on you being casa, and yes, any pana in the all because your board meeting. And I send by and no me chere madwen, and no so chere the different adwen. Adentin na wo ye madamfo na me ma chere adwen we na so a chere adwen because of that na for the ejai. Aden na wo me ye me ba, me wo ye me ba. Na yakwa asor dem, anase yakwa baabi. Na ma chere madwen na me papa me wo fie. Me wo hwe wo school fees and na wo so ye graduate nti me chere madwen na wo so wo chere wadwen. Because of some of these things, a lot of us we need to also learn akrano wakonya different experiences which is different from how you were brought up anyway. Saying some of these differences, it is hard time we learn to recognize it. It is hard time we learn to acknowledge some of these perspectives. It is hard time we learn to understand some of these perspectives as men. It is also picture here. So nipa or me say differ so or no or say a 4. And to be frank, from or perspective, it is true say then a 4. But nipa or no so what me right here say or no so from his perspective, a 3. And it is a wood or no side and I will say some kind of correct. And as on so age na baby a wusu jina no so be say some no kind of correct. Enti ntokwana probably ne eba wo no yire no man ne we say is because senka ugina ono ne side enka wo say asama ono kan so ye no kre senka wo so koko gina ono no side enka wo say nam niana logs na e wana ye kan no e 4 ampa ebi ono so e no nko no so be gina wo side enka ono so be wo say wo ka say e 3 na e 3 ampa from that direction. So sometimes these realities can be very complex and it can be equally valid from varying perspective or from varying observation points. But you hello.
Yes, yeah,
good.
Yes.
And those are some good. And the meaning say so oba no wo ho wo yire no wo ho na wo hu say sometimes so almost say different opinion as papa wo fear and just say onyankopon headship na wo de ama wo no or challenge no or chere na adwen. It is sometimes and it me recognize it ni am so I recognize or adwen from where they are coming from. So you oba from the point of Accra, from the point of oba, from the point of a wife. And I'm so here from the point of a father, I will provide it from the point of somebody who had the family. And give you also better was because maybe who reacts from certain way because of some maybe a experience be a you react to situations sometimes based on certain values be a detail. Like I said, maybe call from college to grad school, new way saying, the first thing, my mama told me, say, my sorry, I'm a bed mentor here. It was a value that was instilled in me from my mom. and it's got stuck with me. Me no ma me feel or my ete say ni feel honum or buy anyone a bema until all play all into a juma ni we say no bema no ntena dem na nkuku nkuo aha ye didi wi nkuku nsi sinkim ye nyina okokoro bibia asa na de achen no ono any time. Those were the values that were instilled in me, and I grew up with it. And in some of these things, you know, those are some of the things that we need to understand. Say, adia abaye ka ho asem. Enti sen kamede me hu kosi eja man no shoes mo. Anase maame akosua shoes mo. Ona say adwo man no shoes mo. Na nka me hwe no from ono any direction and ka sign and nka me feel. Will I say the same thing I make yana? Adia na aba board na say aba business meeting waje ni chinchini say wo enanka ye de ye wo enanka wo at the receiving end of it. So send you see cancer and sa nanka abeka no. And it can be we are so penny, we are department leader, we are software, we are bishop, we are professor, whatever. Some of these things need to be recognized. Yeah, twaso. Ain't your whole personality differences, your whole perspective. I spent quite a lot of time there. Then we come to recognizing preferences. Into area, what is a preference? A preference is what I would like over something else. Into your preference, a DB and kamepe over that. Okay, maybe if you know, yeah, well, strawberry chocolate or strawberry like ice cream or yogurt or something. But maybe senka o mame, what I prefer, and I say, say bianca o mame, maybe chocolate and cannot me prefer. Those are preferences, is what I would like over something else. And you know, obano, and I say, we say, you know, maybe senka obano koye doctor, and then anka obepe, say, or say obey journalist, and also obey artist. E bianca would all prefer say, ubane the will see ya there was sorry no ko be disofo. But no so opeso ye nurse. Ebia papa enka wo prefer say Ghana niam papa wo papa baby we dibia we can we dibia lady edru no ne baby anka wo no enka obeye we say ono so be do anamo anchi ono so person ono so obey doctor to say wo but akra no ebia ono so ne nye ne preference no it's your preference is how I desire things as compared to something else. Why am I fast to pay baby? And you know, yeah, share idea be, and this is very critical. Me perceive share idea when super ye. What preferences is and what preference is not. Nyoma make any bit my screenshots anyway. See, one preference is like and dislike. It doesn't mean wrong or right. The first time I perceive so. Say you perceive a resolve conflict, na you minimizing to quiet any ma anyway say kwa. I see you recognize it yourself in every relationship we find ourselves. One of the things we need to understand and say, my preference, me pe black shoe or pe brown. The father to say, me pe black, me pe brown shoe. And I say me pe black shoe. Now pe brown shoe no does not make me right. Neither does it make you wrong. My first example, a lot of times that is the mistake a lot of us make. Because our preference is say, sorry na nanka ope say in KBI divine service no enka ba enka yen kwa for need music you for nyina ntonyom ansa na sermon aba. And obi be ka say Okay, yeah, sorry. First thing, because of lateness, yeah, divine service, and yeah, it's about school actually. The fact that say or no, and no pay, and I say no on pay, doesn't mean say or no you're right, and I say we are wrong. Most times that is the biggest challenge we have. You will feel your ma, it show different preference. Say yeah, show different preference. Even man, see you show different preferences. On per myself. And crown also our more platform is the same thing. Or per se the preference ni, but and now saying the preference, you know, ne maame and I say papa show different or more per myself. And now they are saying true. The other thing, preference is, idea preference here, comfortable versus uncomfortable. It doesn't mean good or bad. Idea be what yeah, Emma me ho Tommy. Idea be what oh yeah, Emma me ho Tommy. Me ho see me ho so. And trust a good or bad. You will fear some aba. Okay. Ebia me. So also a sin or them ho. Na a honey you will say na. Emma me uncomfortable. But I don't interest the fact that to say also is na me so is it makes you better than I am. Or it's a matter of good or bad thing. It's a matter of comfort. Preference is what I feel like or versus what I don't feel like. Preference is neither correct or incorrect, and not say smart or stupid. And I say it doesn't mean say you are smart and will be and you're stupid. No. Most times, so be a show the preference as a DB will feel say, yeah. And as this is what I feel like you pay. Some people interpret these things, you know, as smart or stupid. The fact that to say, yawo Ghana, and I say yawo be North America doesn't make one yawo Hanum no think say you are smarter than, and I say nipa na yawo in Ghana no you in Ghana no you're stupid. And I said the father said, oh yawo Ghana, anyway you in HSL say bio unim fie nyansa sene obi a yawo ne ha. Because you don't know his values, the experience, and any training. So you recognize some of these things, a bit decreasing the conflict in our relationship and our home. When somebody feel like doing something different or feel like doing something else, it doesn't mean make you smart or stupid. Preference is what I think or what you think. It doesn't mean that somebody is better, best, or worse. Those things are different. Because a lot of times, you know, say what I think. Now also what do you think? We make it look like say, so you are trying to tell me say you are better than I am. And may show some for platforms, you won't talk about just because of that. As soon as I dream, and as soon as I dream, what's the dream? Me so much my dream. Why do you interpret the father say watch the dream? I'm so much my dream. Papa Woofy, watch the dream as papa. Ubano swatch the dream. We swatch the dream. But what the why dream say? If you hold no dear, what now we papa? It is a what's the dream? No, be the dream pet. What partner say? Or more partners or may better than you. No, they never said that. What and I interpret it at a lot of time and tokana yakun is because what's the why they make dream? Why interpret it and not to mean say they are better off or they are best or they are worse. My example, akrana ko school edrechi, papa no be one ko school, parents man ko school edrechi, and answer saponomini program ebi obi wa die. The father say what chere wadwen. no so trend not dream based on the experience, based on no be anyway say or say would home or things so I school auntie. We see some of these statements and some of these things all the time. Not a conflict about the relationship. So what you think and what I think is not the same as you believe that you are better or you are worse than someone. Recognizing preferences. These are the 3 P's that actually bring differences. And differences are the number 1 cause of storms in relationships. And the meaningful differences. These 3 P's create what we call meaningful differences in life and relationship. In things like our values, our desires, our priorities, our expectation, and in areas such as communication style. And these are 3 P's here. Those things in the picture, it creates very meaningful differences. Meaning, say, and so soon that one name in term, one no in term, one man in terminal, and yes, and yet said be, and yes, they are not stupid stuff. They are very meaningful. Now, now I should these differences now. You realize that these ones will create what we call the things in our values, our desires, our priorities, and expectations. And some of these 3 meaningful differences will show in our communication styles, our decision making, your parenting, finance, even about sex and other activities. Because the way you want things done might be different. It doesn't make you better or worse. It is based on your experiences, your values, your priorities, your expectations. About some of these, see people's expectations, see people from different perspectives. Let's put ourselves in their shoes and start thinking about things from their direction. We will get meaningful differences and not fist fight differences. How do we deal with it? You can say easy steps, skills, any abilities. Say who say storms, storms are situations that overwhelm our resources to cope or to maneuver successfully. Any kind of storms, ever because of what? Some of the differences that we have. But we have an easy approach there. Education, which we are doing, the abilities, the skills, and then the yearning to do it. And here with the differences, the number 1 cause of storms. And here with the 3 P's now causing these differences and what it is and what it is not. Now, let's look at the abilities and skills to deal with some of these things. So some of the first things to be able to deal with these meaningful differences. 1, as papa, as mommy, as a crowd or platform, to identify your own P's. The 3 P's now you can't want some initially, personality dispositions, preferences, and your what? Perceptions, your perspectives. Those 3, as I said, one and some or you look at the biblical perspective, trust them, to deal with some of these things, this academic part, and I can want them. As it says, you successfully, you're dealing with some of the conflict that we are anymore. As say me, anyway, we start with ourselves. We need to start identifying our own P's. What are we? Me and Mijina Wakata, who am I? Enti nneɛma na yɛdi kan kaeɛ no, those three things na yɛdi kan kaeɛ no, nyadagye na hwɛ wo. What is your personality? What is your disposition? What is your temperament? What is your perspective? What are your values, your priorities, and expectations? Shall I say church? And sometimes, so now the pen and paper now the church some of these. What are your preferences, your desires, and what? Write it down. Now, say, can me try me dear, and I'm a year training dear, and a master training dear, and I can share this. Oh, into now, daddy can't say no. And yes, on pemasem, but maybe what free background be na dream train and what about setting a base on. Man, me kunu ka say no, and just say be a otie me odi mani ntia na so ontie me. He's coming from a different angle. Two, the internal cognitive skills na ye kan wasa na ability skills na ye kon easy steps na ye take no. One, open and non-judgmental stance. Open and non-judgmental stance. Into who identify with peace and the three P's na you can't that makes differences and meaningful differences. After you are done that, then you open a non-judgmental stance. Okay. Bible ne say even trust him ne say emra nipa ye bone no. Yesu ba no obeka say come, let us reason together. Even for human beings, which we knew very well that we are the ones who committed the sin, who erred, who grieved the heart of God. The Bible says God called us and says, come, let us reason together. And to say, Onyankopon kora na yesi ye di na namoeti no, si ye boni, ye bibi no afraid, he opens up a non-judgmental stance. Onyankopon nko onim say ye boni o. Anko betima pass judgment on us. But even for a God, an all-knowing God who knows all the perspectives, all the nuances, who knows the foresight and then the three sides from where he sits, he still gives us an opportunity to come and let us reason together. Coping and non-judgmental stance. A lot of time, the assuring the relationship, the friend, anyway, saying is because you be brain. Opanyi ye de asema ba ye de asema so nsase kokoka obi ne yere eko anase bia obi ne ma wo kon already no why you wadwen that one make you mind that sakra ne dipo wo kon why you wadwen that se my man dipo wo kon why you wadwen that so ba ne dipo because of maybe when now for here with the more and I say we say because of certain background, your own preferences, your own experiences, your own values, some of these things, instead of going with an open and non-judgmental stance, what make you mind and you are even giving the person an opportunity to. Until by the time I'm making idea all kasana crown, what draw conclusion rate? The third thing, internal cognitive skills, you share the skill set, the easy steps, and when you go to deal with storms, is hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. As I say, you say, you bring your perspective bebree at the same time. See, a bit me resolve conflict with our kids, conflict with our wife, conflict in our relationship. We need to learn to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. Enough be far and draw conclusions. And and draw conclusions. Sometimes you need to stand in this position, 3 on the side or now go jina 4 on the side or now jina infinity, now jina a tiffy, no jina 4. You stand at the east, then the south, the east and then the east and the west, the north and then the south. You need to sometimes hold most of these perspectives simultaneously. And you can only do that when you have an open and non-judgmental stance. And you yourself have identified your own peace. See it me, yeah. Hey, every some penny for upon board meeting them. Every man to kwani bia yako ewo ha. It's me to saw them. And we about that bang. Yeah, I saw them. We know way. I don't know never say. Come on. I sorry no. God said that even if you don't praise me, I'll raise up stones. I saw there's a one thing will be better. Don't create the impression, say, oh no, I said, yeah, sorry, anything will be a new opinion, be a so be it, me can be. The father said, oh no, yeah, papa will feel, no, and I walk around and then say, and say, you don't want anybody to have a different perspective from yours. Oh, yes, sir. You always be in conflict in the house. You become an autocrat. And whenever you do that, meaning say me fear, now no man no ubia opinion, won't recognize ubia opinion, won't recognize ubia perspective. You don't recognize, you don't allow people to also express their views anyway. Say now we see everything as bet you are being better than I am. You dislike me and like you come from the what differences or preferences are not former. There'll always be conflict. So after you've done this internal cognitive skills, we say in the three kind, then you look at your relationship navigation skill. How do we navigate this? One, express empathy, compassion, and validation. Me Professor Bako. Na me also probably me san can be. What say? Honesty without compassion is cruelty. Honesty without compassion is cruelty. Even Yankopon Krano, no, he had compassion on us, like I mentioned, and called us to come and reason together. You move you are, oh, me I give it to people the way it is. There be Americans as we say, there's a fine line between being blunt and being rude. Oh, me I'm very blunt. No, in most times I'm very blunt, or you're rude. We are crap, we are penny. And sometimes you think penny cannot be rude. A lot of us, we are rude to our kids, we are rude to our wife, we are rude to, and sometimes we create the impression and say, but you see, that same thing I will, you know, a cranny not that chrono, so I will be, or also give it back to you. I me, papa, I'm like, the way you do it, they learn from you. You don't tolerate other perspectives. I know the enemy. Sometimes nipa na cry ade na enye na ye kan. It's just you be show a little bit of an empathy. To say nyankopon like-minded. Because we say that we are Christ people. Ye di nyankopon na mo echi. A lot of us cannot even express empathy, compassion. But we want empathy and compassion when it comes to us. And I say sometimes put yourself in other people's shoes. Obano, yes, why you born? Adeno ka so onko ono aye. But bisa ho se papa, bisa ho se maame. Senka wo na wo ya akora no. E na ono no ye papa. How do you want them to treat you? Penya wo ho no ma asema ba ye ka we gigigigigigi. The way we say you are not showing compassion the way say. Bisa se senka wo na eto wa, how do you expect them to treat you? The other thing, how to navigate this. Open to mutually beneficial outcome. Sometimes, we need to get a win-win situation. I say we meet people halfway. It doesn't always have to be 100%. Sometimes, it can be 70-30. At some point, it has to be 50-50. At some point, it has to be you 30, them 70. Mutually beneficial. We need to sometimes negotiate on some of these things. Now, yes, we are learning this problem-solving approach. Yes, problems better, situations better in our relationship, but we need to adapt. Say, how do we resolve it whenever we have differences, meaningful differences? Many just are at work. You power say successful people, they want others to succeed. Unsuccessful people, yes, they want others to fall. You must be brave. Yeah, chance. Nipa obeshia se ni akaza some catch some kind. He say you be boy nipa na building up na ke amano yi no. A lot of us yet say sorry no. You chance asopanyi we say no. You chance na se beba osori na se ba school we say sa na yere ni omoto ho no no. Na ye den. Why don't we use the skills we are learning to help our brothers to resolve their differences? Into ohwe na onye asopanyi we na onye church leader bi na busua no matete a wo ede paso ba na de bebrew. Aware ni gu na so mo busua no matete a paso be mpa na de bebrew. The last thing easy was the yearning, the motivation. And what we are saying that motivation is the big why in making an effort to do something. See, a motivation, it is the big why. A DNT na say me ya way. So what person ye be na we need motivation. There's no way you're gonna do it. Enti bisa who say idea we na complete and answer issue na wo what is my motivation? And then the same kind am I doing it me per se say and as I'm not doing it per se, and your motivation would depend would define your preference at that moment, would define your your perception. It will define your personality even at that moment and your perspective at that moment. Motivation and say, what would be the benefit of making this effort? What has gotten in the way of making this effort before now? I see beside these questions. Those are what we call the motivation. Idea way, say me taking in this direction, and for so many the bebre. Say me banner why you born, but say me buana money coming out, and for so many the bebre. Say I didn't know, yes, this is how it is. Or you win. Say me taking a different approach. Now me the casa bre only we see shiana. Say na beboy. I say chance maybe say, and then I consider what has been the bottlenecks. I know I'm some of this effort before. We need to ask ourselves all these questions. Those are the motivations we need to ask ourselves. And see, storms are situations that overwhelm resources to manage or maneuver successfully. And to see a bit more dealing with storms are, then we need these resources. The resources, and the capability, which we've tried to develop right now, the capacity, and in the community. The community, nipa what platform, so Toronto Ghanaian SDA, that is the community. And if the church as a community, are building enough capacity, creating the room which the church have done right now. Now me know I you develop the motivation to build the capacity. That is the resource we have. But the question is, some resource are you willing to put it to use? Into your capacity, you move with different capacities, but it's a very scarce commodity. Into me can be say your idea friend say capacity and as a resource building capacity seats, One, the cognitive dexterity, empathy, and compassion, emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and self-control. We need all these things. And then the boy might me build the capacity. Cognitive one, empathy and compassion, emotion. Sometimes you hold yourself in check, no put yourself in somebody. Distress tolerance. So also something also bit not tolerate obi. And yeah, with that, but for the good of that relationship, you are willing to tolerate. And sometimes the most important thing, self-control. Say, yeah, hold yourself. And I want us to look. So cognitive dexterity, quickly. Abrante said they only taught him to think about it outside the box. I'm not trained for circles. Yes. Cognitive normally being one. I see I recognize the different types of thinking. Say hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. The fact that to say I say we diffuse or dispute unhelpful thinking patterns. And say the fact that to say will be like or does not like something, it does not mean say it's a matter of preference. And then so much a different idea other than what you put up, does not make they think of themselves better than you. Don't add up. Those are what we call the unhelpful thinking patterns. So then you're developing the cognitive dexterity. You can want some. The can empathy in ways and want some emotional dysregulation and no, you can't emotional self-regulation. We say is the regulation of emotions is the ability to respond to the ongoing demands of experience with a range of emotions in a manner that is socially tolerable and sufficiently flexible to permit spontaneous reactions, as well as the ability to delay spontaneous reactions are needed. Brofo be bring in your part and say, "See, emotional regulations are." And then say asemaba. Now wait me who say adia be environment na me wono. As I say me back out. Na me be kasa the way me my just say me kasa. Will it be socially acceptable? And now say, I say me who say, I say, na me spontaneous reaction be ananga say me no. I hold myself in check. No ma delay no till that the needful time I say me can. Oba ya de wo bedwam, ukuna ya de wo bedwam, oyira ya de wo bedwam. Ehwa. Yes, wo. Sa say de bia me ka kire wo. Say de no wo gu na nim ase poto. Na ko fia asa ka tene say odo na e de na ebedi. Why ya cry poto woni pem? After all say yansan kwa asore. Onko. Enye ho na wagu nanim asi. Wo san pese o san sha atade no san konkrofo na wa ka chiru bia say ne su nipa onya akrapa te say emfaso pa bia ni ne so. Wo bia na ta so dem ko say ada na obaye man program. What say na wie? Sometimes we need that emotional regulation. Distress tolerance skills are used to help us cope and survive during a crisis and help us tolerate short-term or long-term pain, physical or emotional. We need to build our capacity. And then so sometimes, and you might be here, both physical and emotional, short or long-term, but we need to try to hold ourselves in check. That brings us to what I call the self-control. Say, you see, you hold it. So when we talk about self-control, we say is the ability to behave in a desired manner in a situation or interaction. Into one year, what sorry mu, one now from where Juma anyway say, besides self, subanya wooden a d. Is it a desired manner? So when I get the year, is that how you wouldn't have been happy? I know say self-control, you can say it's a limited resource that get depleted through exertion of the will and needs to be exercised and replenished. Self-control, a idea I this is a content pa. And to say why you deposit into it by the time when him round so now self-control na re. Na say resu be didi. Nti emu bebre no your self-control no are depleted. But enunti James chapter 1 the verse 19 no and 20 no more by children and me person me can be and then you key test me say by any of time so I memorize it or say my dear brothers take note of this, everyone should be quick to listen, self-control, slow to speak and slow to become angry. Trust him in the the reason why trust him in the say and then verse 20 was say for man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. See, a customer you bufu ni hold yourself in check. Ni putting your medical canning into practice. That righteous life when you pon free your corner. Abrabot at abrabot the righteous abrabot at like the good way the Lord wants us to go. No, we are going to suffer. And God do not desire our growth. And then meaning say some real hang you could breakout sessions. But me pese wo what can I say? And you may identify one of your P's. All the 3 P's na can wasem. Sit down and identify them. Otsena so who P's na question times no you better discuss some of these things. Me de mano besi wa ha. Onyankopon ka ye ho. Nom ye. Na enioma ye ho no James chapter 1 verse 19 and 20. And me kind of for the last time. My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Onyankopon hyirai onkan ho na omwae na yentimi enya this storm-proof living ayaka wasem. This practical guide to life and relationship no Onyankopon beboa me aye. Na me admochena ye beto aso ni ahwe the biblical part and how it plays out in a normal way I can yakan wasem me. Onyankopon no me no nhirae e wo na dum pinti. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
Amen. Ready. Daughter, better was the pa nyami shiraw. Nyami shiraw pa enye adisua kwini anwumrei. Na enu se nyami aduma be san so ato aso. Nyami ase pa enko na wie no na esua bibi pa afirimu. Tie nyina ba hu pa Nyankopon ya adom na ya esua no yemfa nya aduma. Nyami shiraw bebre. Samre mra ya de adisua no ekwa wie no. Ye besre enua James na wabon paye ama na de James Amwa when James Amwa Sabbath school leader wabon paye na wa shira so ne da pa wie
James no catch there there.
Every man can't about was man so also and our free so
Pancho my mompaye.
okay
Yehwa da wasi anwumrei ekwanso nko afọ akwaso na wakasa kire yen. Echinye bi ni ho awode onam ho nso di amaye. Esro maya ho di ese na dum yen. Dimfasa mi mobra. Shodi ku grain munyam. Yekode maye wonchen na pa. Ade echi a edo wasida ama. Wakoa mana ho di ese na dwimu. Na fa ho nkoso hyenema. Na de wasisi se wo pese ode maye no. China ye opa wonam so afei wode ama yɛn sɛdeɛ wɔ kwan tie yɛda wase Kristo din mu nti amen.
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 Amen. Depending for me, some more announcement to go over. The next idea na mispa.
Abia penny for my announcement. The American lock Edos, Yamishro, and say Bekosoa Ados, watching also na Yaji in Shrepi say, Yamadish, do a Yamis side showing, make Kai in say a war church, a YouTube site, no. Enti ubasai mama wadafun ma amesi sadi enya kwan na omo entie na ni se bekoso ayinhira amaye yemu bia so nya kwan a sa tie bio ise eyensem a emu do na eyinhira bebre